Welcome to Mindfulness Manufacturing, the podcast for manufacturing leaders and professionals.
Designed for high impact on your way to work or unwind on your way home to gain clarity for tomorrow.
Step out of your comfort zone and discover new perspectives to add value, get results, and make a difference.
Yes, let's jump in.
Welcome to another episode of Mindfulness Manufacturing. Good day.
Hey everybody, this is Dave. Can't wait. We've got an exciting guest today, Jason.
This is a special time. We're just approaching the 1-year anniversary of Mindfulness Manufacturing. It hasn't been a easy road, and there's been some great criticism and there's been some great compliments, and I learned a lot. And when I first started looking at having a podcast, and the reason was, we walk into these environments of stress and sometimes toxic environments where people can be real harsh. And it doesn't have to be that way. You can be accountable and you can be kind. And it's balancing that skill, and really saw a need for manufacturers, especially owners of family-run businesses and different aspects, where they can have a resource to listen to something. And mindfulness means a lot of different things, but it's just a lot of self-awareness. And when I did research originally, the best podcast I found was called Making Chips. And I started listening to that and some of their episodes covering a wide range. And I knew what mindfulness manufacturing wanted to be. And I continued to listen to Making Chips. And one of the episodes, Jason Zenger, our guest today, talked about his legacy. And that really excited me. And I reached out and he agreed to come on. So thanks, Jason. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I'm happy to be here.
Jason has been working in manufacturing since 1951 with Zengers. You want to talk a little bit about Zengers?
Yeah, I'd love to. So we're primarily a tooling supplier. So I'm not a manufacturer per se. So I'm a partner and a service provider to manufacturers. So we're a wholesale distributor of the most popular brands of, say, cutting tools, MRO supplies, shop supplies, and stuff like that. And more specifically, we provide integration services and vending machines in our customers' facilities in order to really tighten up the supply chain, reduce costs, increase our productivity. We have metalworking consultants on our staff, and we really try to align ourselves with our clients. And we deliver what I would consider a unique business model, not what I talked about previously, but a level of transparency in our relationships that is really unheard of in our industry right now. So we actually sell all of our tools at cost, and then we also invoice our customers a transparent management fee. And I think the reason that we do that also comes out of just my mentality for being open and honest and transparent and loving and wanting to be a partner with our clients. We're very common in that we are a tooling supplier, but we have this other business model that I think is very unique in the marketplace right now. It's really like, I guess you would say, getting naked. So that's one of the things about it that's a little bit different.
And that's really what we're bringing this podcast more to. When I look at the last year, and it doesn't help if everyone's just talking about what's going great. And every great story comes with its struggles. That's where we really do the learning. Like, there's so many scars on my arm from the wrong things that I've said over time to get to the state of practicing, of just being more self-aware. I just want to jump right in, and I was just excited when I heard you talking about, when you were asked, Jason, what's your legacy? Like, what legacy do you want to leave? So I'll just kind of let you say that on our podcast.
Yeah, I guess. So the legacy, like I mentioned on this podcast, and please forgive me if I leave anything out, because often I record these podcasts and as soon as the words come out of my mouth, I have this like bad short-term memory where I just, forget everything I said. But, essentially I want my my team to know that I led them like I love them. And, a lot of that goes to the way that I operate myself in my marriage and the way I parent. But I want my team to understand that same thing, is that, say, today's my last day, that all of them show up at my funeral saying, hey, Jason was a leader that I really, truly thought loved me. And that comes from my faith as a follower of Christ. Our biggest directive is to love God and love others. And there's one person that, he leaves out of that, and that's loving yourself. And I think that we do really well with loving ourselves. We don't need to be told to do that. We actually need to be told to try to love ourselves a little bit less. I think that if we could, you mentioned before, like that whole notion of manufacturing mindfulness is during that drive into work. And I really like what you said about that before we hit record, was that, how am I going to show up to work that day? Because there's going to be challenges, and there's going to be annoyances, and there's going to be confusion. And it just depends on really how you show up. And if people know that, you love them in every single interaction, I think that really could have a profound impact on your company.
So Jason, I can, speaking maybe on behalf of some listeners right now, the question is burning on already what you've said about transparency, about love, different business model. I mean, there's some risk.
I'm saying a lot of things here, I know.
There's some risk associated with this. I mean, getting naked, right? I mean, it feels like you're getting naked, and at some point, some folks may want to just throw their hands up in the air and say, look, I'm not willing to do that. That's too risky. It will cost me. It will cost the organization. What would be your response to that, Jason, that it's too costly? No way. It's too risky. How would you respond to that objection or that question that may be floating around in other people's minds? Kind of like right now, it's like asking for a friend, right?
Yeah, no, that's good. That's a great question. And I would say that there definitely, we got some pushback. So in the very beginning, I got some pushback from people on my team. And then more primarily, I got some pushback from suppliers that we dealt with. So what we were saying to our suppliers was, the cost that you charge to us, which is kind of like a proprietary cost, a discount off of list or whatever it is, that we were going to be transparent with that. And this wasn't like gamesmanship like you kind of see at the car dealership, where they're like, oh, I'm selling you at 10% below invoice or $100. Like, we all know that that's not actually the invoice price. Like, we know that. Like, you're not fooling us there. And but what I was saying was, we're actually selling to you at our invoice. But on top of that, we're going to charge a fee that's a transparent fee, and it's based on the services that we render to our clients. So we definitely have some major manufacturers, like we're talking, say, like tooling brands. They're some of the biggest in the world who, they still keep their eyes on us and really make sure that we're doing everything in a very ethical way as it relates to them, which we always want to do, because we want to, not only show love to our team, but like our clients and our suppliers. And so, they had to know that we were choosing clients for this business model that were going to have a high level of integrity, so that we could do this in a way that was, honorable to all parties. So that would be my answer to kind of navigating that situation.
Wow.
It's a selective business model. You have to fit certain criteria in order to be a client in that regard, because it wouldn't work for everybody in every situation.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like choosing the right people to work in your organization.
Yeah, choosing the right people, choosing the right spouse, like all those kind of things, I mean, choosing the right friends. I mean, all these things are very, very important.
Imagine that. I
have a friend who I, dearly love him. And, he's such an amazing guy. I've learned so much from him. But I kind of keep him at an arm's length distance, because one of my criteria in somebody being friends with me is that they're responsive. And so, like, if I send somebody a text And I expect a text back, like soon. And this guy, like I said, love him to death. And he's taught me a lot. He's been like a mentor to me. He's just not a responsive guy. And so like, I have to kind of like deal with our relationship in the moment, but I would know, in that same analogy, if I have a customer that, a potential client for this business model, but they didn't respect the business model and they didn't respect the transparency, they just couldn't be a client, no matter how many dollar bills that they were potentially going to bring to my company. It wouldn't work because we have to make sure that we're being honoring to our suppliers and our team in this transparent business model.
So when I think of, where you started down this path, and I think of other manufacturing leaders that have their own core values, but aren't always able to demonstrate them. And it just sounds like it's smooth for you, Jason, to live by your values. You've kind of created this structure around your personal life, your company, but how'd you get there? Like, what were your struggles?
It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. I can tell you that. So we affectionately call our core values do, be, go life. So do the right thing, be dependable, go above and beyond, and life is great. And life is great kind of goes to that mantra of, being positive and bringing, energy and loving your fellow teammates. But it was not easy, even though these core values, when we developed them, this was not Jason saying, hey, this is how I want you guys to behave. Like, that's not how we came up with this. The way we came up with this is it was a long process where these were the core values that were displayed by the best of the best at our company. And so this was the core values that came out of the people on the team, not necessarily came from, the ownership or anything like that. But even though that was the truth, and we actually had to let somebody go literally the day before we came forth with these core values, because everybody would have known or knew that this person didn't abide by them. It was still a battle. And I think, it's one of those things where you have to day to day talk about them and make sure that you're, enforcing them. And, sometimes there's just, people on your team that really aren't going to get in line with your core values. And unfortunately, you have to find a way to exit those people from your team in a dignified manner.
So what's an uncomfortable situation that maybe someone's tried to push you outside of your values, and maybe a time that you struggled there? And how do you have that conversation?
The biggest one is for me is from a sales standpoint is are you upholding our values in how you're selling to our clients? And that was the situation where I had a gentleman that, like I said, there was just some kind of suspect things going on with this person. We have the sentiment that we work for the owner of the company, and we work for the entrepreneur. So the way that's different from, say, our competition is a lot of times our competition, they're aligned with the person on the shop floor. And that's okay. We're aligned with the person on the shop floor too, but we are only aligned with that person on the shop floor in so much that they are also working for the ownership of the company. And there's a lot of our competition out there that there's, let's just be frank, there's, payola going on. And we just don't participate in that because that's working against the ownership of the company. And even if whether that's a Fortune 100 company and you have, publicly traded shareholders, or that's a closely held company where you have an entrepreneurial person that just started it, it's still working against the ownership of the company. We need to be aligned in every regard as far as saying that this is who we're working for. This is who we're partnered up with. And we have a lot of great relationships where the people on the shop floor understand that we're both working in the best interest of the ownership and their mission.
So, Jason, I want to put you on the spot here for just a second. Transparency, upholding values. You had said a second ago, we hire you hire the right people. You bring them in from the start. So where do you draw the line here in grooming, developing, educating, teaching these values, transparency, versus bringing them in from the very beginning and not worrying about that? I mean, what's in reality, what do you find yourself doing? Hiring that and being right or wrong, or developing that, over time? Because
yeah. That is a good and tough question. So first and foremost, I want to say that I'm not doing the hiring thing very well. I would say that I have a lot to learn as far as hiring goes, and I'm trying to hire people better. And I haven't figured out a way to test the people that we would potentially bring onto the team according to our core values in like an objective manner. However, we do ask questions related to our core values. We make sure that our core values are known to the person when we're going through the interview process. We ask them questions as it relates to our core values. And I think I'm getting better at hiring. We're getting better, and we want to make sure that we don't hire necessarily like we're like, oh, this is the most amazing salesperson we can hire, or this is the most amazing marketer that we could hire. We want to hire first and foremost to our core values, and we want to hire somebody who's I think there's another podcast that I listen to a lot called Entree Leadership. It's a podcast by Dave Ramsey, and I don't think that they made this up, but they always reinforce this notion of humble, hungry, and smart. And so you want to hire people that are humble, and these are not our core values per se, but you want to hire somebody that's humble, somebody that's hungry, and somebody that's smart. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily somebody who is, book smart, but somebody that just, has a desire to learn and can show, a level of intelligence in dealing with our clients and dealing with, their fellow teammates.
So I got to go back to the word love, because you just don't hear it that often. I actually did hear it from another CEO last week. I was like, oh, there's kind of a pattern here. I really didn't think that there was the vulnerability for traditional manufacturing to throw that word around. And is there any uncomfortableness with some of the people within your organization when that's how we speak and we treat each other? Do you get some people that struggle with that?
Yeah, so I don't necessarily say those words all the time to my people. I'm trying to demonstrate that to them. If they listen to the podcast, they'll have, understood my sentiment. And this is something that I'm kind of working out in my own life too. One of the nice things about having your own podcast is that you get to not only work out your own issues, but work out, kind of your legacy in real time. And so this is something I'm working out, but I'm trying to demonstrate this to my people in the way that I lead them. But I mean, I do say those things to them sometimes, but I don't necessarily stand in front of them and say, this is the way that, this is the legacy that I want to leave for myself. That might come off a little bit insincere. And so I'd rather they, see it in me rather than that. And just to be really, really clear, I fall short of this all the time. This is not something that I'm nailing it all the time. I don't want anybody to get that as an impression. I mean, I get aggravated with people. It's all the time. It's first and foremost, I need to show love to my wife and my kids. And good grief, that's a day-to-day battle. And one of the things that I thought about when thinking about, coming on your podcast was, the whole notion of mindfulness. For me, it's about it's about a mindset. So it's about setting my mind on God and setting my mind on the things that he's about, and not necessarily having my own opinions about things, but having his word embedded in my heart so that I make sure that I present myself to my family and to my coworkers in the best way possible. That comes from the very morning when I start the day to the way that I end the day. It's really easy for me to be preachy to people, especially when I do have a podcast. And so I have to try really hard to do that, because usually I say dumb things, so when I try to do that, as my kids and my wife can attest to, and, happened just last night.
So Jason, that's interesting. Morning and afternoon, evening. What would be a morning formula for you to sustain this mindfulness? Is it yoga, meditation, sitting on a mountaintop, or, you referred to, your time with God, morning? I mean, what does that look like? Because When we hear mindfulness, we hear meditation. How do you connect and stay grounded?
So I don't use the word mindfulness, a lot. For me, it's mindset, and is having my mindset on God. So I read the Bible every single morning and pray and ask for him to really keep me focused on what would be, glorifying to him and what would be loving towards other people. So that's the biggest thing. So that's how I start my day, and that's how I end my day. And it's kind of interesting as far as the second thing that I would do is after that would be to make my coffee and listen to podcasts. And one of the ones that I listen to on a daily basis is called Morning Mindset. And ironically, it's actually done by the gentleman whose company edits my podcast, Making Chips, and who consults us on our podcast. I'm part of a podcasting mastermind with him, and I start my morning off with his podcast.
And you have you have your wife and 4 children.
4 kids, yeah.
So
3 boys and a girl.
You talk about opportunity for time consumption, right?
Yeah.
That's a commitment. Your ability and willingness to commit to do that, and your family's realization and respect for you and knowing that you need to do that to stay grounded. That's fascinating because 4 kids and a spouse is someone's easy excuse to pull the escape hatch, right?
Oh yeah. Well, you got to get up early. So that's the biggest thing about that. And even when you get up early, the opportunity for distraction. I remember there's quite a few mornings where I will be in prayer, and my middle son will come down and start literally punching me in the head while I'm, trying to, relax myself and be in prayer. And he'll be like, Dad, I want breakfast. I want TV. And it's like, can you just give me a minute? And so then it has to be the situation. Well, I guess I got to get up a little bit earlier because my kids are early risers just like I am. So, I'm kind of trained them that way. So they come down and they don't understand. So they've got their demands. It's also a matter of, just having that mindset. And this kind of goes to one of our core values of life is great, which is, every day is an opportunity to do things differently. So I can, completely fail on these things today, but I've got that opportunity tomorrow to be able to reset my mind on what is important.
Mm-hmm. I love it. It's interesting when you were saying that, not every day is exactly how you intended it in the morning, and sometimes we have our own behaviors that we catch ourselves at and say, that probably wasn't the best way for me to handle that. So as a leader of your organization, when you do have that moment, how do you respond to that with your staff? If you've got a moment where it's like, okay, I probably went a little far on that one. How do you respond to the staff? How do you take that as a learning moment and talk about transparency?
Yeah, I guess just being open and honest and apologizing if you kind of failed in that regard. And my one of the things that we do is, everybody in my team is equal. So I'm the owner of the company. I'm responsible for leading my team, shepherding my team, but I don't say that I don't call them employees. I don't use that word. I don't think of myself as better. I don't think of myself as smarter. And they have every right to, to question me on things and second guess me on things, and they do. And that's okay. I really want my company to be more, self-managing and self-leading rather than them being dependent on me anyway. So, I truly believe that I could be the smartest guy in the room and the best leader, but the 30, 40 people that, work for me, them coming together and making a decision is probably going to be a better one anyway.
How long did it take for you to learn the value of that, Jason?
It's been something that's been, kind of resonating in my mind, and I've really had to, to get humble in order to realize that. I made some mistakes this year. In 2020, we had the opportunity, as PPE was one of the big things this year. Nobody even knew 99% of people didn't know the word PPE until 2020. My wife's company, Black Industrial and Safety Supply, they're a PPE distributor. I really shifted myself from Zenger's over to working with my wife on PPE sales for a period of time. I don't know if I'm ready to tell this whole story yet, because I think I might tell it on Making Chips eventually when I'm ready to, and I'd have to get my wife's permission. I made some big mistakes. We made some big mistakes. My team made some big mistakes that at the time were extremely costly. And I'm talking like hard dollars costly. We ended up recovering a lot of that money, but we still did lose some money. And I think in the midst of that, my wife called me out on it, and she was like, I think you got greedy. And my wife has always been kind of like, speaking in my ear and kind of making sure that she does keep me aligned on what's important. But she definitely, called me out on that, because I did. My vision got clouded. I saw, these bright, shiny things, and I got greedy, and, I definitely suffered for it.
So we'll let you save the rest of that story for your casting, right? But very specific to Mindfulness Manufacturing is this, and you set yourself up for this. So I got to go there.
Sure. Yeah.
At what point did you fight, resist, defend versus, you know what, you're right? When was that breaking point, the tipping point to where you were within your head and realized that, yep, they're right, I'm wrong? I mean, what does that look like, and what did it take for you to get there? Because that's not an easy circumstance, what you just described, and I so much appreciate you sharing that. But too many of us want to say, nah, come on, give me a break, back off. You're being too hard. I mean, when you're being called greedy, it's hard to say, to be mindful and say, okay, you're right, I am. I mean, share with us, walk us through that just a bit, Jason. And
that's a great question. I think in the back of my mind, I knew it. I was just kind of suppressing that thought. But then when my wife just called me out on it, and my wife's not one of those people who says a lot, you know what I mean? But when she says things like that, you need to listen. When she told me that, I was just like, wow, you are right. And it kind of like hit me like a punch in the face. She didn't say it in like a, in a way that, was accusatory. She was just, very matter of factly. She was like, I think you got greedy. I don't think I said anything in response, and I had to think about it a little bit, and I eventually came back to her and said, you're right. And I kind of consulted with Ty Gooch, who's, disciples me, is, my pastor. And I think I might have mentioned it to Carrie Green, who, hosts the Morning Mindset. He's also somebody that I go to. And, everybody was like, yeah, your wife's right. You got greedy. And I was like, gosh, I can't believe I did that.
So it doesn't sound like it was an immediate positive response, but one of where you had to go take a walk down the lane, right?
Yeah.
You had to walk down, and you had to kick the can a little bit and spit on the tree and, let the sun go down a bit. And it doesn't happen instantly.
I mean, there was many, many, many sleepless nights. I mean, this was a big, big mistake. And even one of the people on my team lost their job over it. So there was a lot of sleepless nights in this, and as a matter of fact, this person, when he lost his job, I didn't even have to tell him. I just brought him to my office and I was like, what happened? And he's like, I know. And he just asked me, how we make arrangements for him to leave. I mean, I literally didn't have to say, you're fired or I'm letting you go, because he knew. I mean, it was that big of a deal. So there was a lot of sleepless nights, getting to this point. And then when my wife finally said that, I kind of knew that was, the nail in the coffin as to why this happened. So,
yeah. Wow. Man, thanks for sharing that. That's what this is all about, really.
It took a couple months, but everything, worked its way out. Everything ended up being fine. And the hard dollars that we had lost, we recovered a good portion of it. 95% of it. So we're fine, but there was a lot of sleepless nights right before then.
So I know we're running short on time, but what if you would not have recovered it financially like you've described?
I don't know. We would have recovered. We would just have, had taken a loss and it would have been really tough on us. So, but we would have recovered from it.
Well, hey,
it just would have been a hard recovery, and as a business owner, I mean, as much as I can be wanting to leave a legacy of, loving, my team and glorifying God and how I do that. I mean, I'm in business to grow, and I'm in business, to deliver a profit. That would have hurt that very badly. So, I mean, I'm not going to be insincere. I mean, I love, the free market, and I love entrepreneurship, and I love having the objective of, being profitable as a company and being able to grow. And it would have, really hindered that greatly.
Well, it's those moments in life that we get when we're uncomfortable. That's when we're learning.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I learned. Yeah. It was a great lesson. Yeah.
And I'll take it back to kind of what you said. You can't walk around a company and put up signs on the wall, talk about your core values, talk about your legacy, and you word it well, Jason. It's just really and how you respond to those difficult situations, and knowing that we're all going to have some gaps in that. But if we can be transparent, if we can come into it with the right intentions, we can make manufacturing a place where parents want their kids to come. Because in our industry, in manufacturing, the way we do things, it's very transparent. And I'm very privileged to be part of this community and part of our community in manufacturing with this place. And I think if more of these difficult conversations happen, which turn into different behaviors, then I see this industry shifting. I truly do. There's so much good hearts and good people that I've met that just sometimes don't have the skill or just don't know what to say or how to handle it. And I appreciate you coming on today and not being afraid to say, hey, you know what? You can say these things, but there are going to be times when you're tested. And that's what it's all about, is that, those difficult situations we come up to, it's to the best level of our training. And it's we don't just all of a sudden get really creative in those difficult situations. It's like, what's my foundation? And so thank you so much for coming on and just sharing some of those foundational blocks and how you Thank
you guys for having me on and allowing me to just kind of talk about some of the struggles and successes that I've been through, and I love that you guys are trying to make a difference in manufacturing.
All right, and we'll leave Jason's contact information in the notes, and you can learn more about Jason there. Thanks so much, guys.
All right, that was fun, guys.
Thanks for taking the time to join us today. How you show up matters.
We'd love for you to subscribe, share with a colleague, and tell us what you think.
Your feedback's important to provide this high-quality, powerful program that makes a difference in your life and others. Take care.
See you next time.